I do this because I have not only dealt with narcissists in my law practice and through what I do now all day, every day, and helping people. I have also dealt with them in my personal life, which is why I'm on this mission, which is why I devote my life to this, because I know the pain. I've been where you are. I have felt where the narcissist has had power over me. And I have been, where I've woken up in the middle of the night and felt powerless. You just feel like no one else really understands, especially if you're dealing with a covert narcissist. Those are the ones that everybody else just thinks that they are wonderful. It's almost doubly difficult because you almost feel like if you tell anybody about it, not only are you not going to get support, but you're feeling like everybody else is going to think that you're the one who's crazy and nobody else is going to be supportive of you because everybody else thinks that they're so wonderful and they're actually going to be supportive of them and think that you're just being petty. So it's extremely, extremely isolating in a lot of ways. It's isolating in a lot of ways. And I know for me, I tried to get people to understand. I tried to get people to help me when I was dealing with it on a regular basis. And, you do feel you are powerless in many ways. And I can tell you from my personal story that the more you think about it, the more you ruminate over it, the more you allow that person that space in your head, the more you are in victim mode and not living your life, not in creation mode, not giving yourself the freedom to be who you are meant to be. And that's really the true crime of it all. So that's what I want to start with. You were meant to be so much more. And I can tell you that when I was standing on a mountaintop with my daughter and my husband, and it was, we're looking at the sunrise and we were on vacation, all I could think about was this narcissist. And that was my aha moment, as Oprah used to say, like that was when I thought, no, you don't get to be here. I just realized in that moment that every moment I gave that person, I was allowing that person power over me. And so the person that walked up that mountain was not the same person who walked down that mountain, because I just realized I needed to stop giving that person power over me. And so I want to give you that same gift and give you 5 ways in this video to stop allowing narcissists to have power over you. So number one is to never explain, justify, or overshare. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. I know sometimes you feel like you need to, they make you feel like you need to. They write you these long emails, they write you these long texts, they put you on the defensive all the time. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify yourself to anyone. I always say, pretend like you're reporting the news. You're an adult. You don't need to share anything about anything if you don't want to. Even if you're married to the person, you don't need to explain. Just give the facts. If you didn't do anything wrong, then you don't need to explain. Just give the facts. Stand in your power. Know who you are. So that's number one. Number two is never let your self-worth depend on anyone's opinion of you. You can negotiate terms, you can negotiate issues, you can negotiate contracts, but you never negotiate your self-worth. You never negotiate your self-respect. Okay, so never allow what someone else thinks of you to be what your opinion is of yourself. And I know that's really, really hard, especially if you've been married to a person for a really long time. But when you say, he's making me feel bad, I want you to remember that no one can make you feel anything. No one can make you feel anything. And that is such an eye-opening thing. But no one can make you feel anything, without your permission. And that's something that I have really tried to teach my own children. And it's something that you really can remember yourself. Almost imagine that there's like an invisible shield. No one can make you feel anything. So number 3 is start setting steel boundaries and keep them, whether it's, just starting with, I'm not having conversations with you unless you're going to be respectful of me. If you're raising your voice to me, if you are going to call me names, if you're going to treat me poorly, I'm not having conversations. And you can start to say things like, I can see that you're upset. I agree that we don't agree. And by the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists that you can have for free. Go to disarmthenarc.com and grab them. They will be very, very helpful for you going forward. So just go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my free phrases for disarming narcissists. Okay, my gift to you. Go get them right now. Okay, disarmthenarc.com. Start setting steel boundaries and then keep them. Even if it's the smallest thing that, you are not going to be disrespected going forward. That's number 3. Number four, this is just an agreement that you're going to keep with yourself. All right. And that is, forget about getting them to acknowledge you, see your side, getting closure. Expect them to be the worst versions of themselves. Expect them to be narcissists. I had a client one time who called me up and said, can you believe he did this? And can you believe he did that? And can you believe he acted this way? And can you believe he acted this way? And I said, yes. What I can't believe is that you can't believe it. You've been telling me he's been acting like this for 3 years. And, she just started laughing at that point because she was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I have been saying this for 3 years, because she realized in that moment, it was like a reality check for both of us. She had been saying that for 3 years. When you expect them to act like narcissists, then you won't be surprised when they act like narcissists. You'll be surprised when they don't. Expect them to be their themselves, the regular versions of themselves. Then you won't be surprised when they are themselves. You'll be surprised when they act like polite, regular human beings. Okay? Forget about getting closure. Forget about getting them to acknowledge you. Forget about getting them to see your side. They're not going to acknowledge your accomplishments. They're not going to happen. It is so unsatisfying. I get that, especially when you've given, and given. I know. I've been there. I've been exactly where you are, especially if it's been a super one-sided relationship and you want so badly for them to go, I know you've given me everything, but it's not going to happen. Okay? Just move on. So I just want you to put that in the comments right now. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. It's time for you to move on and go on with the rest of your life. By the way, join my free private Facebook group, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, because that will help you with support as well. Come and get the support and guidance that you need, because that will help you also. Lots of people in there supporting each other, and that will help you. So come and get the help and support that you need, and also get the free phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com. Okay. And then finally, be offensive and not defensive. This is actually part of my SLAY methodology, which I teach in my program, my SLAY program. Strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you, which is what SLAY stands for. You is you being on the offensive, and you, which is your mindset. 100% of winning happens before you even walk in the room. If you don't believe you can win, no one can help you. You have to be offensive, not defensive. When you're defensive, then you're actually giving them credence. You're actually buying into their ridiculousness. Okay? Don't give them that. Don't give them that satisfaction. They don't have any justification. All right? Be offensive, not defensive. Talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Well, first of all, this is not the first time I've been faced with a narcissist. Being an attorney, we have clients who are narcissists that we have to deal with. And that is an interesting experience. And each time I've dealt with that, I've had to go no contact with them in order to get rid of them. And then in my personal life, I never, I didn't know what a narcissist was. And I fell victim to the normal cycle of a narcissist that I learned from you, Rebecca, and all your guests. And one of the things that struck me the most was when you interviewed medical people. They talked about the chemicals that are released in your body when the narcissist captures you. And so I was the victim of a typical love bomb. And then after a couple months, I got the degrading part going. And then a month later, mini abandonment. And like most people, by the time we were done with the cycle, I was addicted chemically to my narcissist. And I didn't realize at the time that she had objectified that because of her condition, her internal condition, she objectified me. I took my image and took it inside her, but made it grandiose, so that when she got to really look at me, then she'd have some way to degrade me. But I found that I had very intense love bombing that, by the time we were done, we were engaged already. And it was, to me, it was the most powerful love I've ever felt in my life, something I'd never felt before. And I didn't realize it at the time, but because she had taken and objectified me, I was actually falling in love with myself. And it's very interesting to realize that after all this time.
They mirror you. They mirror you. They know how to do that.
Yeah. Because I always wonder, how could a person who is so different from me in age and ethnicity be so much like me? Now, how could they like the things I like, do the things that I do? It was like, a relationship made in heaven. And I couldn't do anything to fight it. It was like impossible. And then when the degrading came, I started, I did unconsciously, well, it was consciously, but it was hidden from me by my subconscious. I did what you you recommend to take a journal, to make a journal entry. And I did that. I didn't know that I had done that until after the arrest. And
Oh, he just throws that in there like,
well, I think we'll get there eventually, but I wrote down I have 55 days worth of notes over a 5-6 year period of what abuse I took. And when I read it, and excuse me if I get emotional about this, because it's, very close to me, and it's close in time to me. I'm still, in the middle of it. And when I read the notes, I can't believe it's me. And the abuse was so obvious and tragic, and the control. I can't believe I gave away my control. I wrote a book called Taking Control, and I gave it away to somebody else. And how can I do that? So when I saw those notes, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I said, who is this person? Who am I? How could I let this go? But I couldn't help it. I was like a heroin addict. And I had always wondered about my friends in the music business who were heroin addicts and ended up committing suicide. And now I know, because, in the trauma bond at the end, you can really feel the narcotic effects of this. You are caught in a web like a prisoner. People would say to me, well, how was the pandemic for you? And I go, well, what pandemic? And they said, well, the lockdown and all that. I go, well, I've been in lockdown for 6 years. I don't know what difference it is really. And so I took the notes and I put them someplace, and forgot about it. Absolutely forgot about it. Completely struck it from my mind. And I had no memory of ever writing any note. Yet when I read them, it flowed right back to me. And so the reason why I know about the chemical addiction is from watching you on the show, and all your YouTube videos were very instructive. You referred me to my attorneys, and I have been dealing with this and all of the consequences of it ever since. And there's so many things to talk about. What happened? But what exactly would you like to hear?
well, why don't you talk about how you felt at the darkest hour?
No, at the darkest hours. I'm going to get a little emotional, but I found a note that I left in my phone a day after I had taken pictures of some knives that were threatened. And the note said, if I'm dead, I'm not suicidal. Investigate the person next to me on my bed. So I thought I was a dead man. And I still harbor that fear today. And, as a result, I have a protective order, which enables me to maintain no contact. It's a protective order. It's supposed to protect me. So, and I know my attorneys are knowledgeable in narcissism, and it's very important that when someone gets involved in a marital or other kind of relationship where they need a lawyer, that they actually pick someone who knows what a narcissist is, because no one will believe you. Because you do things that rational people don't do. And they think you're making it up. They don't understand that there is a group of people who didn't develop without being abused. And because of that abuse, they become a narcissist later in life. And it's what I never understood was what exactly was wrong with her, and could I help her? Could I fix her? And I tried everything I could. I talked to the elders at my church. I talked to the police. I talked to everyone I could to try and figure out how can I help. And then when I watched your YouTube videos, I realized, oh, it's not my fault that this happened to me. And there's no cure for her. So gotta go no contact. And that's
So, and I think what you just said, you said something that was, I think, very distinctive and important. And I make that distinction in my new book too, so I want to make sure we highlight this. And that is that it's not just that the narcissist needs to be people need to understand the narcissist. People need to understand what the victim is going through as well, because you are also not in your right mind at that point. I mean, you've also experienced so much cognitive dissonance and so much, they've used so many different tactics to destabilize you and to mentally abuse and emotionally abuse you. And if it's been over a period of time, you are in a state of such CPTSD
yeah.
that you come across sometimes the victims or the targets. I like to use target better because really it's more that you've been targeted. Come across sometimes as the crazy one. And I think sometimes judges don't understand that, mediators don't understand that, because, the narcissist sits around looking calm, cool, and collected, while the targets look like they're all over the place. But part of that is because they've been subjected to this craziness for so long. Would you agree?
Yes, you just described the body cam videos. I'm explaining the circumstances to my officer, and she's cool, calm, and collected, talking and persuading and winning over and love bombing the other officer. So believe me, they know what they're doing and they're good at it.
Right. And part of it, of course, is that they've spent, I often talk about how in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about the 10,000 hours to achieve mastery. Well, I mean, 10,000 hours is like roughly 4 years or whatever it is. I mean, they've been working on this since childhood. So, I mean, 10,000 hours has been achieved by them years and years and years ago. I mean, and if you don't have the empathy factor, and so you're not worried about how people are feeling or anything else, it's no holds barred, right? So,
yeah. The hardest part is that, I love her so much, and I am hurt so much that someone that I love that much and trusted that much could harm me. It's just, it's really a hard thing to accept, but you have to in order to go on.
well, you have to understand that you're not loving a person who is capable of loving you back, number one.
Mhm.
And number two, it's not really love, because it's really more of that, what you were talking about, that trauma bond, that addiction, that, I talk about Robert Sapolsky's study, where he did that study on monkeys. And, for those of you who haven't heard me talk about this before, that, these monkeys were given a reward, a treat, if they did something good. And if they got this treat every single time they did something good, then the dopamine levels in their brain were non-reactive. Everything was the same. But if they got a treat intermittently, such that they didn't know when they were going to be rewarded, then just the anticipation that they might get a treat caused the dopamine levels in their brain to rise to the level of cocaine. So that it's you actually become physiologically addicted to that narcissist because of that high and low, that love bomb, the ghosting, the hot, the cold, and the highs are so high, they love you more than you've ever been loved. And that, the pedestal, the sweep you off your feet. And then the lows are so low. And that's what it is. So it's not a true love. And then the thing is, they also target people who have their own trauma, by the way. People who have had trauma in childhood, they're able to feel that core, who have their own core wounds, who need to love other people, who want to pour all that love into somebody else, who want to save people, who think that they can give their, that empath thing, and so they take all of that and, deplete you completely. And you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted, and they're still starving for as much supply as possible. And it's an unending cycle. But they feel they target people who have that kind of core wound of, I need to save somebody, some people who have unhealed stuff inside of them as well.
Right. Well, my character flaw is that I'm a rescuer.
That's my point.
And I also didn't take drugs, so I would have no idea if my body was being taken over by something physiological, because I don't know what drugs feel like. I barely drank, and I really think that they have to make you a better person even than you were when they captured you, because they need more supply. And I think that there's a positive thing that happened to me because I was in a relationship. Despite all the abuse and all the things that I took, I actually grew to be a better person in every aspect, because I was pushed to be that way by the person who was captured me. And
well,
then
hey, if you can have gratitude for it, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I think it's important that you learn from every experience, and that you turn every disappointment into an opportunity for better, and learn from the past. And that way you're not going to repeat it if you learn from it. And those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. So I hope that nobody out there repeats what happened to me and what's happening to them. I think it probably would be seductive to people to want to repeat it, and to allow their narcissist to come back and take them over again. Because you really believe that there's no other person in the world that can make you feel like that. And it's a lie.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, but that is, what that trauma bond is all about. But if you can be grateful for it and start to see the signs for the future so that it doesn't happen again, then that's, you know, definitely all the better for it.
Right.
So after being in that dark place, how did you start to turn yourself around?
Well, I probably would have still be taking it if she hadn't taken the violence to the next level and hit me so hard in the face. And that kind of snapped me out of it right there. And at that point, I thought, wow, I'm really in danger. I better do something. And then I called the police. And as a result, I had a moment of clear thinking. And I watched her videos very carefully for 2 weeks. And during that time period, I discovered a lot about myself and a lot about her. And then I hired some attorneys that you recommended, and we've been dealing with the problems. And I have a victims' rights lawyer who is making sure that I'm treated like a victim and not as a criminal. And it's important through therapy. I have therapy. I found a great therapist in England who is urging me to be a strong person and to show everyone, including the narcissist, that I am not going to be captured anymore by anyone. And I am strong.
I love it. I love to hear that. I love to hear that.
I mean, there is life after narcissism, definitely. And, um, you get a kind of a clue as to how good life can be. During the cycle, you just don't get to stay in it very long. You know, it could just happen at a flash like that. You've said it a lot of times on your podcast that boom, they just switch. They're all of a sudden they go from being, the most loving person to like a she devil, and it's just you can't understand it. I would just walk away, and I learned a long time ago not to confront people who are like that. And I just would leave and I would think, what is going on here? This is insane. How could somebody switch from saying, how do you feel that I love you so much to you're a liar, you're a cheater, you're saying all these bad words to me, you're yelling and screaming at me, and you're thinking, wait, who's she talking about? That's not me. Now that's her. It's really interesting. She called me, I looked at my notes, she must have called me a liar 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Meanwhile, she's the liar, of course,
yeah, every
projecting.
time she said liar, she's actually just raising her hand saying, liar, liar.
Exactly.
Because, I found out that a lot of stuff she told me was not true. And I'm not going to go into any details, but we really need to form relationships with people that you can trust, and,
Oh,
and
so
people
true.
who and people who have integrity. And the narcissist does not have integrity, and you can't trust them. It's just, and if you give away your trust to them, you can guarantee that they're going to use it against you.
As a lawyer, how do you uh, feel about the SLAY program, and how do you think that that helps people?
Well, having subscribed to it myself, I think that it has very helpful hints for people about how to put things together for their lawyers, so their lawyers understand what's going on. Most lawyers and judges, they don't know what a narcissist is. They think that you're the crazy one and not the other person. And you have to somehow get your lawyers on the right page by showing them things. Like I picked out all my notes and my emails and gave it to my lawyer, and my lawyer came back the next day broken, saying, "Oh, I can't believe we got to get you out of this," because they can recognize it when they see it, but when they hear it, they just don't get it, a lot of them, and they don't understand that they're dealing with someone who's not a normal person. You're dealing with a narcissist, someone who is only out to get what the narcissist wants. And so you have to figure out how to get from here to the end as fast as possible and safely as possible. And sometimes that requires you to put the case together yourself and hand it to your lawyers and say, "This is what happened. Do you need to talk to my therapist? Do you need to hire an expert in narcissism to explain it to the court? What do you need to do to make them understand?" And the SLAY program does that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, I mean, I know that it has helped you, and I'm so grateful that you've been able to break free. And so, how do you feel today? How are you feeling today?
Well, we can't be 100% 24/7. We just can't. Even a normal person, let alone a victim, or as you said, a target. And so today, for example, I woke up and I was very melancholy, and I was thinking about coming on here and talking, and of course it's bringing up things for me, and I knew that I was going to leave the pain and the melancholy in the room where it was, and I was going to walk out and close the door behind me and leave it in the room. And that's how I got the strength to make it to this. That's how I got there. So my day went from being dark to being light. And you really appreciate the light when you've seen the dark. It's like if you really can't appreciate the dawn unless you are in the darkness first. Then all of a sudden this beautiful light comes out and you feel so warm and comfortable, and you forget about the darkness. And it's very important to do that. You can't dwell on that. You have to look forward. The people who make it through life after dealing with a narcissist are the ones that take all of the baggage that they carry on their back and work through it and get it off. Because if they don't, the doors that are open in front of them, they're not going to fit through. They're going to have too much baggage. And you need to do that. They have to get through it. And it's rough. It's very rough, because not only is it a mental and emotional addiction, it's a physical addiction. And the chemicals that go through your body, I suspect that if you exercise a lot, like I've gone and I've hired a trainer, someone who I trained with in the past, and I have started an exercise program that creates some of the chemicals that my body missed after I severed the relationship. And the cortisol from the bashing that I took, I don't want to see that. I don't want to recreate that. But so what I did was I did therapy, and I did what the therapist suggested, which was to be a powerful person, to go back to the person to who I was before I met her, and to just look at my inner child and be that person again, and be strong and not give up myself. to anyone again in that
Mm,
way. And that's what I'm doing every day.
I
You know,
love it. I love it. What would be the theme of your life today?
my theme of my life today would be um, the clouds parted.
Clouds are parting.
Yep. The
I love
clouds
it.
parted and the sun is coming out.
I love it. Ah, so any final words of wisdom for anybody who's listening who might be where you were?
Well, I would say that I was so attached by the trauma bond that every minute of the day I wanted to write or talk to my ex, and I knew I couldn't. So I wrote it down on papers and then I threw them away instead of sending them to her. And my advice is to people that if you get the urge to contact the person who's hurt you, write it down if you have, look at it, read it, accept it, and then tear it up and throw it away. That's what you got to do to stay mentally focused, because you're being torn apart every day and you have to put yourself back together by realizing that in the morning you're going to feel one way and by noon you will have worked your way out of it and everything's going to be okay. It is, as long as you don't make contact. That's the other rule you have. No contact. No contact means no contact. I don't know why people don't get that. It's the other person is dead. You can't contact them. You can't watch them on their Facebook. You can't watch them on social media. You can't follow them. You can't look at them. They're dead. That's the way you have to look at it. And if you really can make yourself do that, then you'll be fine.
So let's talk about the SLAY program and how it
Yeah.
helped you for sure.
Yeah. So in negotiation, it's really about give and take. And the more you know about the narcissist, the more you have to work with, because you know what they value. And first and foremost, they value their public appearance and the shiny things and being liked and adored by people. But then, they're also very sloppy, and they think they can lie their way through any and everything, and they're entitled to more than a normal person. And so these are, this is leverage. So, you strategize, right? And then you have leverage, and then you anticipate, and then focus on yourself. And so the SLAY program is really, um, I think one of the hardest things about this engagement with a narcissist is most people never go to court. The majority of people never have to go to court for anything. The majority of people never even get like a traffic ticket. So those people that ever interact with the justice system are those people that get a speeding ticket, and then way below that are people that have to deal with like any kind of litigation. So it's very intimidating, and just but it's necessary. So the necessity of that, getting an overview of how that process works, is one of the first things that's really important of the SLAY program, because people who have been really put in a box don't know their power and don't know how to access the system and how to get change. So that is really helpful first and foremost. And then L, or leverage, is what are the things that are going to balance the scales in your favor. And the anticipation is, what are the things that this person has said to me over and over again? What am I likely to expect? And so I'm definitely in that phase now, 3 years on, of just like, oh, every time, well, I don't say every time, but it's like, I can predict that this is what I'm going to hear because I've heard it many, 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 many times. And it actually is kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like a game, but it's definitely a reward mechanism where you say your piece, and then when you get the response that you expected, it's like, yes, this person has not changed. This person has not matured in any way, shape, or form. But just to be able to know who you're dealing with, that anticipation is really important, to not to not ever expect this person to be decent or kind or empathetic or generous or any of those things, it sucks. I mean, it's a really terrible, it's terrible, but you harm yourself when you expect different. And so when you can anticipate that this person is going to act a certain way, regardless of how you show up. And that's why that 50 phrases to disarm a narcissist form was so vital, because it's like, I already know what they're going to say and what needs to be responded, what response I need to give them. So, and then you obviously is the person you're in control of, it's like in a situation with a narcissistic, partner, ex-partner, I've had a number of narcissistic bosses, I had two really narcissistic bosses in a row. I've been independent, but like the two bosses that I worked with were super narcissistic. And it's like, you show up and you build yourself up and you're never going to change this person. I'm not the best at managing up, but it's like, just know that this person's never going to change. And you can't change them. The next person's not going to change them either, but you can change you, and you can change you every day a little bit. And, there's another book that I love called Atomic Habits, and it doesn't exactly relate to narcissism, but it's just like, when you think about each action as an investment in your future self, then you can break out of narcissistic patterns really, really quickly, because you're like, hey, I can control this, or I'm doing this, and this tiny little thing, drinking one more glass of water a day or doing 10 push-ups a couple times a day, transforms me into this version of myself. And the narcissist wants you to be a smaller and smaller version of yourself. But when you realize that just these little things that you can do from day to day make you the person that you most desire to be, it's a total game changer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm so glad that it was so helpful for you. I mean, it's exactly what I wanted, it's exactly what I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was transformational for me as well, being able to kind of figure out, I mean, I had been helping people negotiate for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I didn't know anything about narcissists, even though I had been dealing with them in a negotiation setting for
Sure.
years. It wasn't until I had dealt with one as a business partner and then started reading hundreds of books on narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started applying what I was learning about narcissism to the cases that I mean, I was still practicing at the time. And I thought, it was like I had discovered penicillin,
Oh,
seriously.
totally. The
Um,
thing is, it's like, what's so insidious is that nobody believes it at first, but then, if the whole world was full of narcissists, society would completely crumble. Human civilization needs people to be honest and to be empathetic and to care about other people. And narcissists are so good at exploiting that, because on a day-to-day basis, you just have an expectation that unless someone is like carrying a knife or doing something out and out dangerous, that you can probably expect them to be thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. And if everybody in society was looking to stab you in the back the minute your guard was down, we would have no society, or we'd have no, there would be no, it would just be complete chaos. But the fact is that a narcissist is an opportunist who is always looking to pick your pocket, always looking to get over on you, get over on everybody, and thinks they can. And they're actually very accomplished at it because they've been doing it their whole life. And so
yeah,
that's why they hide in plain sight. But,
yeah,
like you said, they're predators. It's like,
yeah,
that's how I explain it to you, is like they have this really predatory and parasitic behavior where they just see everyone as a mark. And
correct.
so you don't really realize how you're being roped in to a narcissist's game, because you just assume that, of the thousands of people you've met in your life, you've only met or acknowledged a few narcissists, but the fact that they're so, they're like goblins, right? They're really just like,
Right. And one of the things that you just mentioned that I wanted to actually come back to, um, that I've kind of had an aha moment about
mhm,
since I've been doing this work, is that um, there's something around 85% of cases in family law settle out of
mhm,
court. And so, conversely, that means that, 10 to 15% of cases go to trial,
mhm,
right? I have had this aha moment that roughly 10 to 15% of the population is what they estimate to be narcissistic.
mhm,
And I have come to realize that I don't think that those numbers are an accident,
mhm.
because I believe that I that there's a correlation there.
Totally. Yeah.
I believe that the cases that aren't settling are the ones that have a narcissist involved.
Sure. Sure. Because who else wants to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back?
Correct.
And yeah, I mean, so this is like a Tina Swithin thing. It's like you can't just call someone a narcissist in court because there is no place for that. But
No. So what I tell people all the time, because I do know for sure that I'm the most um, prominent, at least the most the lawyer that's the one that has the most visibility right now,
mhm,
um, out there, the one that, is that you have to, you can't just say the person's a narcissist, because judges don't care about that, in the
mhm,
sense that there, you, you can't tie that to law.
mhm.
And what the judges care about is the law,
Right.
because that's what they're tasked to do.
Mhm,
Okay, so you have to put it in terms that the judge can tie it to. And what the judges are tasked to do is make a decision based in the law.
mhm,
So you have to find a way to tie it back to the statute.
mhm,
And so when people say, oh, they don't care, they don't care, they don't care, it's not that their job to make a decision based on empathy.
mhm,
Oh, yes, honey,
mhm.
they're a narcissist. Well, that it's not a conversation that they're supposed to be having.
Right.
They're
Right.
supposed to make a decision based in the law.
Right.
That's their job.
And someone else would have to make the same decision based on the same evidence. It's not that they're a human standing in for the law. They're not
Their
it's not like
job
I said,
is
it's not a
to be
conversation.
the
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Hmm.
So the law is the law, and it's
Hmm.
written down.
Right.
And
And
so
when you
you
read the transcripts, it says the court, it's not
court,
they're
correct,
talking about themselves in the abstract.
correct.
No.
So you can't look at the judge as,
And expect them to get it. It's like you
as
have to
oh
show a
gee, they
pattern
don't
of this
care. You
behavior.
have to
Yeah.
put it in terms, because the judge has a job to do, and the judge needs to keep that job, and the judge is going to be um critiqued on that job, and the judge
Hmm.
could be appealed, or and if they don't make a decision based in that law.
Yeah.
And so you have to put it in terms that the judge is going to care about. And how that happens is you go, okay, California law has 10 factors or 18 factors or
Hmm.
whatever it is.
I
And
think it's 13.
but whatever it
Yeah.
is, I don't know. I
Uh,
know Florida has 17
yeah.
factor, but so you just you go, okay, what's the first factor? Which parent is more likely to foster a close and continuing relationship with the other parent, or whatever the
Hmm.
factor says. And if that factor doesn't, if you can figure out a way to shove narcissism under that factor, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the judge to care.
And without going down a rabbit hole, the last hearing,
That's what I teach in the slave
yeah.
program, by the way.
And without going down a rabbit hole, what's fascinating about it is that the case right before ours was a high net worth couple divorce. And the attorney for the respondent told the judge, oh, well, this is too complicated for you to understand. And it was kind of this like, needle skipping over the record. The judge was like, no, this is absolutely not too complicated. And I treat all people under the law the same, because it was just like a millionaire divorce. But he was like, no, I get exactly what's going on here. I take umbrage to that statement. But then we were next in our situation. So it's like, here's a judge who from one breath to the next is dealing with like division of millions of dollars of assets and multiple properties. And then it's like the custody situations, like narcissism really doesn't mean anything to the judge when the judge has to deal with like these like property divisions and custody time and things like that. So it's just like, again, it's really like, what is the evidence the judge is gonna make a decision based upon?
Right, right. And so that's how you get the judge to care.
Yeah, that's how you get the judge to care. And it's like, it's this whole unwinding process, because going from feeling so like this person was mistreating me so terribly and starting fights at 3 o'clock in the morning and, all of this, to how to present this to a judge so that a judge can make a ruling, and successfully presenting, to the judge was a very, again, I credit the slave program tremendously, because it's like the thing that a narcissist wants more than anything is to get you to argue with them, to get you to defend yourself, to see the world through their very skewed prism. And, that can really cost you when you are in front of a judge, especially if you have written communication, because that communication can then be presented as an exhibit. And so, there's other people like Bill Eddy, who wrote Biff and, Splitting, and some of these other ones, who he's a psychologist and a lawyer. And, it's just like Biff stands for brief, informative, friendly, and factual.
And firm.
And it just like,
Yeah, and firm.
Firm. Yes. Brief, informative, friendly, and firm, and or factual and firm. But just the idea, friendly and firm. Okay. So just get to the point, say nothing more than you need to say, and becomes a muscle, so it's like, there's these narcissistic muscles that you have to train. And, the unfortunate thing is you get to train them every single day or almost every single day, especially if you are co-parenting, and again, like in my situation, it's just like, oh, why is this so hard? It's so hard every day. This sucks so much. Why can't this person just be decent? Like I'm so over fighting, and just want to go on with my life. And it's like, no, don't go on with your life. I want you to be, beholden to me or thinking about me in some way, shape, or form every day. And it's like, a healthy person doesn't think that way. A healthy person wants to get on with their life and live their life fully. And it's just like, so that's the hard thing to come to grips with, and nobody's going to understand it unless they've been in the situation. But if you have been in the situation, you're just like, yes, and I know you have got a Facebook community. It's like totally, rocking, because there's so many people that want to be in
almost
fellowship.
100,000 people now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
People who just get it, and when people share their text message conversations and things like that, just like, wow, been there, done that. So, but then it's like this virus of narcissism out there in the world. It seems to be really infecting almost as many people as COVID. So that's the, it's like, that's the next frontier, is how to inoculate society against narcissism, when social media and, YouTube and politics and, just there's so many outlets for narcissism to really flourish. And so, and it just causes so much damage to so many people. So, you know, and no surprise that you have 100,000 people in your community, and, you know, such a prolific YouTube channel, and, you know, the courses, and now doing these big arena talks.
Now, if you're getting ready to go to court with a narcissist, whether it's divorce court or otherwise, you're going to want to be fully prepared, and you're definitely not going to want to walk in without having the best possible strategies and tactics at your fingertips, because this is going to be no cakewalk. The narcissist is going to make it as difficult for you as possible. So stay tuned and listen to the end so that you can get all the tips and you'll be all ready to go. All right, number one is have everything that's possible to be in writing, because narcissists by their nature are pathological liars. So they are going to lie about things that you said, you didn't say, conversations that took place or didn't take place, what they said or didn't say, whatever it is, it's going to be twisted, it's going to be manipulated. So you want to make sure that you can keep everything in writing to the extent that that's possible. So, and ideally it would be like in an email or something like that, where you actually have the timestamp on it, you have the date stamp on it, you have the email, who it came from, the email address of who it came from, who it went to, that sort of thing. Text messages are admissible in court nowadays, but it's just a little bit more difficult to authenticate them when it comes to evidence in court. So it is better if you can do it via email if possible. The other problem with text messages is that they tend to go away after a certain period of time. And especially if you don't save them, it's really difficult to go back and find them. The phone companies don't even really keep them either. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you use email if possible. If you're co-parenting, having a co-parenting app such as Talking Parents or Fair or Our Family Wizard, something like that is always a good idea too. I mean, the bottom line is that they're going to try to get you away from this writing. They don't want to be in writing because they know that it will box them in, and narcissists don't want to be boxed in. So they're going to do whatever they can to get you to meet with them, to go against what you said before, things like that. They're just, you know, let's just meet. We don't need the writing. We don't need all these other people around us, you know, let's just meet at Starbucks or whatever. And the reason why they're doing that is to get you into a place where they can manipulate you again. So by keeping everything in writing as much as possible, you can minimize that problem. Now, what the flip side of this, by the way, is for you to remember that every single writing is a potential trial exhibit. So if you don't want to see it again, then don't put it in writing. The way I just say it to people is, you know, just imagine the judge is leaning over your shoulder and watching you write that text or that email. And before you hit send, say, you know, Judge, Your Honor, is this something that you would want to see? And if it's not, then you don't want to send it. Okay, the second thing that you're going to want to do is use video for depositions. And the reason why you're going to want to do this, and yes, it's a little bit more expensive. You have to pay for the court reporter. Now you have to pay for the videographer. But it goes back again to boxing that narcissist in. If you box them in enough, then they will act like the spoiled temper tantrum child, and their true colors will show up, and you'll be able to use that against them down the road. So, but you know, just trying to control their behavior using video will definitely help, because if you don't use video, what they tend to do is do things that don't show up on the record, meaning the court reporter will take down everything that's actually said in the deposition. When you look at the deposition transcript, it'll just say question, blah, 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 answer, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing around it. There's no description given around it. So if that narcissist is giving you dirty looks, making faces, all the things that they do, and they do, then nothing is taken down. Now, for me as a lawyer, there have been many times where I've had to say, let the record reflect that so-and-so is making faces at so-and-so. But, you know, how many times can the lawyer do that over and over again without just constantly interrupting the deposition? So by videoing it, you actually see what, how they're responding and how they're acting. Plus it makes them behave a little bit better because they're a little less likely to be a complete jackass if there's a video shining in their face. If this is all sounding really good to you so far, put a thumbs up in the comments. Okay, number 3 is focus on your own case. So this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see lawyers make. I see lots and lots of people make, because it's just natural to want to focus on what's the other side doing and all of their flaws and all of their mistakes and how is he or she getting away with this and look at how badly they're behaving and isn't the judge going to see that? And the answer is maybe and probably, and yeah, you will want to bring out all of the other bad behavior of the other side. But, you know, just like in football, if all you have is a good defense and you have no offense whatsoever, then you never score any points, right? So you want to make sure that your case is as strong as possible. Focus on your case. Make sure that the facts and the supporting documentation and everything is done to create your case and make sure it's super strong. And then for the other side, you create that leverage to help motivate them into wanting to come to the table to potentially have a settlement conversation with you. Or, you know, you have all the points that make them look bad. Yes, you know, anything that shoots their credibility. You know, when people say, oh, how are they getting away with this? They're lying all the time. Why? How are they getting away with this? So the thing I want you to remember, here's a good reality check for you, and that is, who would stop them from getting away with something? The only person who has any power over another human being in the court system is the judge, not the lawyers, not you, not family members. No one has the power to order someone to do anything other than the judge. And how do you get in front of the judge? Through motions, through hearings, through trials, things like that. Things have to be filed in the court system, and then you have to have a hearing, bring it to the judge's attention, and only at that point can you potentially rein in their behavior. But while you're waiting for that time to get in front of the judge, you're just documenting, you're keeping track, keeping track, keeping track. So that's how you're building your case. If you're dealing with a child custody situation, for example, and the person just never shows up to get the kids, or they show up late, or they constantly change the time, you just document it, document it, document it. And then when it comes time to present that to the court, you have a nice log of exactly what happened and when, what time did they show up, what time did they leave, you know, all of that. So eventually it will work in your favor. But just remember that you want to keep track of your own case and make sure that that is bolstered as much as possible, and then highlight the weaknesses of the other person as well. Okay, number 4 is what I started to allude to in number 3, which is document, document, document. And I cannot stress this enough. Keep really careful notes. Have an app open on your phone. Have a journal, a log, whatever you need to do so that wherever you are, real time, you can be logging what's happening. And I have won entire cases on these types of logs. Let me tell you, they do work. It is critically important. So make sure that you're documenting, because what you're doing is you're slowly closing in on your narcissist from every angle. It's you know, this is war. This is the art of war. And so you're building these tactics and you're closing in on them from various different angles. And it doesn't look like you're doing much until you've got them fully surrounded. And that's when you realize, hey, I have them. And only then is when they're going to want to start to have a conversation with you about potentially settling the case and not having to go to court, because you know that the main thing about a narcissist is that they don't want to look back. I have a lot more on this in my videos on how to negotiate with a narcissist and how to negotiate with a narcissist X. And I will drop links below to those videos. You'll definitely want to check those out. Okay, number 5, definitely do very thorough research. Have everything ready to go. Do you need appraisals? Do you need valuations? Do you need a forensic accountant? Do we need to figure out what the person's true income is by looking at their bank records? Do we need to figure out a lifestyle analysis by looking at credit card statements and bank statements and things like that? Everything needs to be ready to go, all I's dotted, all T's crossed. Don't leave any stone unturned. Don't leave anything to winging it, because whatever your weaknesses are, wherever there's that weakness in your case, that's where they're going to find you, and that's where they're going to jam their foot in and open that door and make it into a big, huge thing. So also, in being prepared, you're going to want to make sure that you do all the research for the other side. What are they going to argue? What points do they have against me? What leverage do they have against me? And then be ready to answer that. I anticipated this argument, and here's my response. Because if you're only prepared for your side, then you are only half ready to go. So make sure that you are ready for both sides, as if you're preparing for both sides. And one word about leverage, by the way, is make sure that once you've got that leverage, you use it at the most opportune time. Do not give it away too early. Do not show it to them before you get to court, because you want to use it when you need it. All right, so the last one, number 6, is to keep your emotions in check. And this is going to be one of the hardest things to do, because narcissists know how to push your buttons and they know how to manipulate you. So they're going to make faces, they're going to make little snarky comments, they're going to say things under their breath. And, you know, so I would totally avoid making eye contact with them in the courtroom. It's not going to serve you. Just look at the judge. When you're testifying, just look at the judge. Make sure that you've practiced your testimony. I, as an attorney, go over my direct testimony with my clients. If your attorney doesn't do that as a matter of course, ask your attorney to do that with you, or ask them for the questions and have somebody else practice it with you. You want to just be able to at least control the parts that you can control, which is your direct testimony. You should basically know what those questions are going to be. Your attorney will be asking you those questions, and be ready with what you're going to say so that you're not stumped and you're not feeling nervous and anxious. You know exactly, okay, this is that question, here's how I planned to respond to it. I mean, of course, you're going to answer truthfully. You just want to be prepared on how you're going to word your answers, how you're going to say it, what things you want to make sure to get in, what things you want to make sure to say, things like that. So, so that's your direct testimony. Now, as for your cross-examination, you should also see if your lawyer, I know I usually do this as a matter of course. I tell my clients what to expect for cross-examination too. I even sometimes get another lawyer in my office to do a mock cross-examination with the person and sort of beat them up a little bit, just so that they're ready. You know, the kinds of questions that I would ask under cross-examination, something like that. So the more you can be prepared, the less emotional you will be, the less anxious you will be.
5 ways to make sure that you beat a narcissist in court. So you're going to want to make sure you stay till the end. You're going to want to make sure that you save this video. You're going to want to make sure you share it out. You're going to want to make sure that you go ahead and watch it over and over again, because I'm going to give you all the ways to make sure that you beat a narcissist in court. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to remember the acronym, knock 'em dead. All right. So DEADD. So 2 Ds. but DEADD, knock them dead. So the first D stands for document everything. And I mean everything. You're going to want to journal everything. You're going to want to document everything. In my Slay program, I actually have 12 different things that you're going to want to be documenting, but you're going to want to document everything with regard to finances, to your children, if you have children, anything that they do that seems out of the ordinary. I know it's a pain, but if you have a notes app or something, just note it, because you're not going to remember. But even if it's crazy, I don't know if I should write that down, but you just never know. And there's many different ways that these things come into play. So you will want to make sure that you document everything, whether it's a business case or a family law case, or it's against a business partner. Maybe it's a case against an employer or something like that. It always is something that you're going to need to be doing, is documenting. Whether it's a timeline form, you end up needing it for the statutes to prove different elements of a statute. You definitely need documentation. I also have a podcast where I ended up interviewing one of the people who use my Slay for Biz program, Sharon Scott. I highly recommend that you check that out, because she talked about how she used my program and it really helped her a lot. So definitely document everything. The next thing is the E, emotions. Keep them in check. You're definitely going to want to keep your emotions in check. There's so many different reasons that you want to keep your emotions in check. I mean, for one thing is that they want to trigger you constantly. They love to see you squirm, so they get supply from it. And you really don't want to give them narcissistic supply, obviously, because that's no fun. I mean, they just get the satisfaction of seeing you go crazy, right? I mean, why do you want to do that? But then the next thing is that they use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the one that's the problem. And they will use that against you in a number of ways. They use the emails against you, the texts against you. They may even be videotaping against you. They use the witnesses against you, whatever it is. So definitely keep your emotions in check. They use it for custody, so many different things. So definitely E, keep your emotions in check. And it doesn't help you when you're negotiating either if you're all over the place when it comes to settlements, because then you end up settling for things that you regret 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road. You're like, I didn't want to settle for that. Because a lot of times you're like, oh, I just ended up settling for that because I just wanted it to be done. I just wanted it to be over with. Or maybe you were just feeling pressured. Really try to keep your emotions in check. And by the way, if you're really, really struggling with that, because a lot of times when you've been dealing with a narcissist for a long period of time, you are in a trauma state, especially PTSD sometimes. I do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. I do receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you anymore. We have a partnership with them because I wanted to have a partnership with a service that we could trust, that we could recommend. If you are struggling, go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung so that you can get the help and support that you need if you're having trouble with your emotions and you're having trouble with trauma. So that's the E. The next one is always wear the white hat. That's the A. Always wear the white hat. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that in that you want to be the one, if you end up in front of the judge, which that's what this is about, you want to be the one where the judge is like, hey, this is the person that obviously is the good one. Let the narcissist be the one who's badly behaving. A lot of times it's so easy to fall into, hey, they're behaving badly. They're doing things wrong. They did it too. I can do it too. What happens though is then you have a situation where the judge is just like seeing like two kids that are fighting. So for those of you who are out there watching who have children and you have more than one, what happens is they just are like, oh, both of you just stop it. You know, they don't see that, oh, well, they started it or they're worse. They just see two people who just are fighting. So you want to be the one who's consistently not being in the mud with the other one. Because if you are the one who's what I call always wearing the white hat, who's not engaging, who didn't respond, who didn't get into it, and the other one is always the one who's constantly the badly behaved one, then it makes it really, really obvious who is the bad one. And it's kind of hand in hand with keeping your emotions in check, but it's even one step much, much further than that. You really, really want to be the one who's just always behaving, always doing the right thing. So just kind of imagine that the judge is sort of walking around with you and watching every single thing that you're doing. Always wear the white hat. That's the A. All right. So the next one is don't go anywhere alone. That's the D, the first D in Knock 'em Dead. And we're going through all the elements of what to do to beat a narcissist in court. So, you know, this is because they're going to say you followed them, you did this, you did that. They lie all the time. So they're constantly going to be saying that you were menacing, that you were threatening, that you did this with the kids, or that you touched somebody inappropriately, or whatever it is that they make up constantly. And then you end up having to defend against these ridiculous claims. So you want to make sure that you have people around as much as you possibly can. If you have children, for example, have your exchanges for custody at daycares, at schools, you know, at shopping plazas or places where people are around, because you just don't want situations where they can make things up about what's going on. And in that same vein, by the way, you're going to want to make sure that even depositions are videotaped if possible. And I have actually a whole video on how to beat a narcissist in mediation. I talk about that in there, and you should definitely check out that video as well, because a lot of you who are trying to beat a narcissist in court are also mediating with a narcissist, and you should definitely check out that video as well. And I also do have a whole video where I interviewed Judge Lynn Toller. You guys should definitely check out that video too. She was the judge on divorce court for 17 years, and her video interview was very, very highly fascinating. So definitely check that out too. And if you guys are so ready to knock them dead, put knock them dead in the comments, because I'm so ready to help you knock them dead. And if you've been following along with how to beat a narcissist in court, and you've been following along with my acronym, you know there's one more D. The last D is decoys. It stands for decoys. And what I mean by decoys is you really do not want to give them your best offer or give them any of your best evidence or show them any of your cards or show them any of your hands until you're ready to unveil it in court or when you're ready. I mean, a lot of times while you're standing on the courthouse steps or even at lunch during the trial, they want to settle, they're ready to have settlement talks, or even maybe the eve before trial or a couple of days before, they're ready to have some settlement talks at that point or something. And you might be ready at that point as well, but you've got to have your strategy, your leverage, have anticipated, your focus on you, your position, that being on the offensive, my whole slay methodology. At that point, you do not give them your best offer. You do not show your best evidence. You decoy the whole thing until you are so ready to go. Basically, the way I look at it is you're building an invisible fence around them until you turn on the lights and they realize, oh my God, I'm totally pinned in. At that point, they have no choice but to resolve the issue with you or resolve the issues with you. So you're appearing weak, you're feigning ignorance, you know, oh, I don't know, I have no idea. Let them think that they're winning. Let them go all crazy on you. Allow them to go off. A lot of times that's good for you. It's hard, I know, because you don't want them to get away with anything a lot of times during the case. But sometimes if you have an ongoing case, it's good to let them screw up, because those little battles that show that they're screwing up help you to demonstrate to the judge who they actually are. So let them do that, you know, because then you can show patterns that they aren't doing what they're supposed to do, show patterns that they're liars, show patterns that they are bad parents or terrible with money or whatever it is that you need to show. It actually ends up helping you in the end, or that they have anger issues or whatever it is. So that definitely helps you. Sometimes it's really, really good to feign that you're weak, feign that you're ignorant. A lot of times, by the way, you can pretend like there's a particular thing that you really, really want, and it's not the thing that you really, really want, because then, you know, they go after that, you know, because they're going to go after the thing that they think that you really, really want, right? So let them go after that particular thing, right? So things have turned red hot. You are under massive attack. They're triggering you because that's what they want to do. They want to make sure that you're triggered. They want to destabilize you. They want you to feel paralyzed. They want you to feel powerless. That's their goal. It's not just, by the way, it's not just because they want to win. Yes, they want to win, but there's kind of like this other piece of it, because if they win, then it's over. And they don't necessarily want it to be over, because then the fun is over for them. Because part of the fun is the intimidation factor. Part of the fun is watching you squirm. Part of the fun is like, it's kind of like that nasty kid who just like takes the earthworm and like wants to pick at it and watch it kind of squirm, put pins in it and see what happens to it. Like that's kind of the fun of it for them. It's almost like an experiment. They enjoy it. So how do you look fearless when they're like enjoying that? So I've come up with this acronym. It's called Cool Words, and it's to help you remember what to do when they are trying to stick it to you. Because a lot of times, by the way, they know you, especially if it's in a divorce situation or a business partner dissolution or something where they've really gotten to know you well over the course of many years. They know what your Achilles heels are. They know how to get to you. They know exactly what is going to needle you. So, cool words. C stands for chill out, take a break. First thing you can do is just walk away. Say, I need a moment. I need to walk outside. I need to take a breath. Go throw some cold water on your face. Go to the restroom. Take some fresh air in. Just get away from the intensity of the room. Just doing that for a few minutes will make a huge difference. You have the right to just walk away for a second, change it up a little bit, especially if there's a mediator. If you happen to be in a mediation setting, maybe even say, I want to talk to just the mediator for a second, or maybe have just the lawyers talk, or maybe ask to have a different dynamic as far as who's talking to whom. Even just that can kind of cool the temperatures down in the room for a second. Okay, so that's C. That's the first C. The next letter is O for cool words. All right. So O stands for observe their behavior. You're just observing their behavior verbally to them without emotion and without judgment. So you say to them something like this: I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. You might even ask them, what's making you angry right now? Get them to verbalize it. So you're just observing. You're observing their behavior to them. You're just kind of taking yourself out of it by doing that. And you're asking them to explain their behavior to you without emotion, without defensiveness, without judgment. You're not getting down into it with them by doing that. So that's the first O. The second O, we're working through the word cool here. The second O is observing the situation as if you're a bystander. So the first O is you're observing their behavior to them. The second O is you're observing the situation as if you're a bystander. So this is where you're actually taking yourself out of the entire situation as if you're not even part of it. It's almost like watching a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. They're screaming, they're yelling. You don't feel like you need to get down on the floor and scream and yell, right? You usually just watch them. This is almost helpful, like as if you're watching a football game, or you're watching a wrestling match, or you're a hockey game and you're seeing like those guys, like they start fighting, right? Because it helps you to start to not take things as personally. Because remember, the way people treat other people is always a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. Highly recommend the book, The 4 Agreements. One of the 4 agreements that you make with yourself is you never take anything personally, because the way people treat other people is always a reflection of the way they feel about themselves. Observing the situation as if you're a bystander is something actually that Judge Lynn Toller also recommended when I interviewed her, and you can definitely check out my interview with her on this channel as well, and we'll make sure we have a link to that here as well. So definitely check that out. The next letter is L. We're working through the word cool. So we've done COO, now we're doing L. L is let it go by you. You're just literally watching the words that they fling toward you just go by you. I just think of it as like when I was a kid and I used to play dodgeball. Like they would make us, not willingly, by the way. Hated that game. But when they would make us play that game in PE, they called it PE, and they forced us to line up against the wall. Do they still make kids play that game? Horrible game. They force you to line up against the wall, and the boys would fling the ball at you as hard as possible, and you would like try to dodge the ball. Anyway, so you just kind of like watch the words go by you just like that. Like you just go past them. The words go by you, and there they go. And you're just observing them go by you, and they don't touch you. And that's what you're going to have them do. You're just letting them go by you. That's L. All right. And then words. This is my favorite part of this. You use mantras, words, power words to keep you grounded. And so what you do is you actually have power words in front of you. So they could be words like power, strength, leverage, resilience, confidence, or control, whatever it is. And you just have 1 or 2 of them right in front of you just to remind you of who you are, what you're doing there. And you don't even have to have the whole word written out. You can just write P for power, something that's going to keep you grounded, keep you feeling strong. It could be just a symbol, something that when you look at it, it's going to remind you of that word. In the book, Think and Grow Rich, which I also recommend, Napoleon Hill talks about that power of auto-suggestion, which is a way for you to reprogram your brain and your neuronal patterns. And so by having these words there, something that is in the room with you when you're in that situation, that high emotion, that tense and intensive situation, it's a way for you to remind yourself who you are, and you're going to be less likely to be triggered that way. It's reminding you that you're badass. You're badass. And that badass self of yours is going to stay in that room, and it ain't going to go anywhere when you're under attack, so that you can remain looking fearless.